You're good to go, Mayor.
Very good. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special meeting. This meeting has been held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspapers and it has been posted in public places. And the next time that the Aberdeen Town Council will be meeting will be on November 5th. Tonight is a special meeting that the Town Council and the Planning Board and the Zoning Board are coming together to learn about stormwater management and what we have to do by March. And I'm sure we'll go over that date. And what I'd like everyone to do at this point, we'll start with the Town Council, is if everybody would just introduce themselves after Paul introduces our guest speaker. So Paul, will you kindly introduce our guest for the evening?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm Paul Rainier, Chair of the Aberdeen Environmental Board. We have with us tonight Mike and Sophie from the Watershed Institute. And I attended a webinar a few weeks back where they were talking about the new stormwater rules for the municipalities that are, that have to be adopted before March next year. And I was totally impressed by the information that was given out and thought, this stuff is so valuable for the Planning Board and Zoning Board, as well as the council, that, I asked the question, is somebody willing to come out and share? And I was told yes. So I'm so grateful to have the two representatives here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Welcome to Mike and Sophie. We're honored that you're here tonight to help us get on the right track with our storm management. So starting with the council, I'm just going to ask before I say a word, is Joe Martucci with us, Brian?
No, the deputy mayor is not here, Mayor.
Okay, well, the deputy mayor is not with us because he did have a medical procedure done. He is doing very, very well and he's missed. So in no particular order, will the town council introduce themselves? Maybe Margaret?
Yes, hi, welcome. I'm Margaret Monto.
Good. And Dr. Hirsch, good.
Councilman Robert Swindell.
Robert Swindell. Go ahead.
Councilman Greg Cannon. This is wonderful to see everybody. Thanks again for all your volunteering on our boards. I appreciate it.
Sure.
For some reason, my voice is not coming in.
I hear you.
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
I hear, that's Councilwoman Kelly. So I hear you, but I don't know if I see you, but that's...
You're coming in now.
Oh, I see her. Okay, good, I see her. Any other town council members that I have not...
No, it's all of us, Mayor.
That's it, huh? That's a good group. All right, and of course, the township attorney, Michael Argello, is here. And Michael, thank you so much. So now I'd like to jump to the planning board and ask the planning board chairman to start with his pleasantries.
Hello, everybody. William Shenton, and Margaret's on the planning board, so she's already been introduced, and of course the mayor. And we'll, let's see. I'm trying to find people here who are on the board.
Pedro, did I hear his voice?
Pedro, there you.
Why don't I introduce? Yeah, this is Pedro Mirabel, and I also attended that webinar, and it was definitely a great presentation. So thank you.
Great. And any other planning board members on that I don't see? That's either a phone number or. Okay. All right. Okay.
Council's here. Mike Lexington.
Yes, I want.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah. So we want.
No,
Mike.
I'm not a member. I'm just saying that I'm here.
No, it's very important. So then what we'll do is jump to, there's Mr. Hirsch. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mark Limburg is trying to get in. He's saying he's having a problem getting in. If somebody can just resend him the link.
All right.
He said he's having a difficult time trying to get in. Mark Limburg from the planning board.
Okay. All right. We'll see who has his email. Could you get his email for me? And
I'm working on it right now.
okay, great. Thank you very much, Councilman. Now I guess we'll jump to the zoning board, and the chairman, could you say hi and introduce yourself and some of your zoning board folks, and then we'll ask for the attorney to say hello.
Good evening. This is Lyle Phelps. I'm the chairman of the zoning board. I see quite a few members. If you guys would introduce yourselves.
Michael Byock, Zoning Board.
Allison Friedman, Zoning Board. Hello.
Hello there. I see Harvey.
Harvey Brenner, Zoning Board.
Good. Who else? So we
Claire, Zoning Board.
wonderful. Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else from the zoning board here tonight? Mr. Lexstein, maybe you can say hi.
Hi, Mark Lexstein, attorney for the zoning board. Good to see you all.
Great. So did I forget to, of course, everyone should know our town manager, Brian Russell, and our clerk, Karen Ventura, our CFO. I see Angela here. And I think that might be the pleasantries, if I'm not mistaken.
Mayor, we do have, I don't know, they don't have their video on, so I don't know if I should call them out, but there are some members of the environmental board who've joined us this evening.
Oh, great.
Paul also serves on the planning board, so.
Okay. Paul is absolutely on the planning board, and Bruce is on zoning. Well,
Thank
okay.
you, Greg. And Miss Osborne are on the line.
Yes, Izzy. Yeah, all right. And then we have those
evening.
phone calls. Yes, so good evening. Thank you all very, very much. This is kind of neat for us to have the three governing bodies on tonight, the council and the planning and the zoning board plus attorneys. And I think Anthony, you're on, right, from CME?
I'm on.
Yeah, there you are.
There he is.
There, I see Anthony. So we got our engineer and all the professionals, and really good. So Paul, I think you should ask Mike and Sophie to start in any way they'd like to.
Okay, that works. Start in any way you'd like to.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting us this evening. Thank you, Paul. And we had over 249 towns on this webinar that they are referring to. And we've been reaching out and talking to a lot of them, but I think Aberdeen may be setting the record for the best attendance and the most comprehensive attendance. So thank you all this evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay.
Great.
Okay, can everybody see?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I'm just going to do 2 slides to introduce you to the Watershed Institute because you may not be familiar with our work. Our mission is really focused on keeping our water here in New Jersey clean, safe, and healthy. We have been doing this since 1949. We are headquartered in central New Jersey in Pennington. And it's been interesting as a result of this COVID crisis. We primarily work in our watershed, the Stony Brook Millstone watershed and the Delaware River watershed, but really, particularly with this green infrastructure rule, have now been able to reach out to towns across the state, which has been actually, you know, if there's been a silver lining, that's been a silver lining for us. So we do our work using 4 strategies. We have a science department and we run a very robust citizen science water testing program. And that allows us to really keep an eye on water quality. And if there are local problems, to be able to identify those and fix those, and also to look at our water quality over time, and that informs our policy work. We have an advocacy group. Mike is the director and I work as the municipal policy specialist. And I think we're fairly unique because we really concentrate at the municipal level, helping towns develop smart environmental policy and addressing inappropriate development and helping with land use decisions. And we also work at the state level. We have a vibrant environmental education program, everybody from the preschoolers up through adults. And increasingly, we are making our green infrastructure offerings more robust. So I'll touch on some of those as part of this presentation. And lastly, we model best practices at our watershed center. We have a platinum LEED watershed center that unfortunately right now is closed to the public, but I hope someday you can visit, and a 950-acre reserve with trails and rain gardens and a green roof and a constructed wetland. So if you're in the neighborhood, I hope that you will come by and see us. So tonight we're going to do 5 things. I'm going to give you some context regarding flooding and water quality here in New Jersey, the reasons why the green infrastructure rule is so important. We'll go through the rules so that you understand what the components are. And we'll also talk about some of our recommendations for towns to go beyond the basic state requirements in the rule in order to really protect your town from flooding and to protect your water quality. And talk about next steps, how we could work together to help in that process, and some resources that we have available to municipalities. So just to start with some images that unfortunately are all too common here in New Jersey, we are experiencing an increasing amount of flooding. I know there's another storm coming tonight that I just saw is projected to be about 1 inch. And flooding isn't just an inconvenience, it is a problem that is resulting in serious economic consequences, some public health consequences, and it's something that we are needing to get more serious about addressing. So there are a lot of reasons why the flooding is happening, but the one that we may have the most control over, working at the municipal level, is the amount of impervious cover that we have in our communities. So it's important to recognize that as we add impervious cover, our roads, our development, we are impacting the way our watershed naturally operates. So here you have a graphic that shows a watershed that has no impervious surface. And in that situation, when it rains, 50% of that water is able to infiltrate into the ground and only 10% runs off, with the rest being taken up through evapotranspiration. When you get up to 10 to 20% impervious surface, you see the infiltration rate goes down to 42% and the runoff rises to 20%. And scientists tell us that once we reach that 10% trigger with impervious coverage, we start to see our waterways begin to be impacted negatively. And as you would expect, as we increase our impervious surface, the infiltration goes down and the runoff increases. So you can see in that high density scenario that more than half of the water is now running off. And as it does that, it's picking up pollutants, it's picking up pet waste and oil spills and whatever's on the ground and taking that down our storm drains and into our waterways. And here in New Jersey, because we are so densely developed, in many, many communities, there are significant parts that are at this medium density trending to high density, where flooding is really a problem. So at the same time that we're continuing to add impervious cover, the precipitation that we are receiving here in New Jersey is increasing. So based on data from David Robinson, who's our state climatologist, when you look at the precipitation that we're experiencing now and compare it to the first 7 decades of the 20th century, you see that on average every year, we're getting about 3.5 inches more of rain. And that might not sound like such a big amount, but when you do the math, that actually results in 526.74 billion more gallons of water that are falling on us here in New Jersey every year. And we're not just getting more water, we're also getting it increasingly in these heavy bursts. So this is a chart from Climate Central, and what it shows is the increase in that top 1% of the heaviest precipitation events that has taken place between the late 1950s and 2016. So you can see it's happening across the country, but particularly here in the Northeast. And according to the recent report that New Jersey has out on the impacts of climate change, in New Jersey, actually, this percentage has increased by about 70%. So we are actually the place in the country that is experiencing the greatest increase in this heavy, heavy precipitation events. So that's just, yeah.
I will jump in.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for allowing us to do this. Sophie and I decided to do this together as I was going to, one of us had to be at a planning board meeting tonight as well, but that ended up not happening. So as Sophie mentioned, we have an impervious cover, as that increases, our flooding is increasing. At the same time, and that's a very visible aspect of, impervious cover and rainfall increases. The other aspect that is happening is water quality. So New Jersey measures and reports on water quality, and they do a report every 2 years. And this report, and I have just two snapshots from 2016 and 2010 from that report that shows that, that red or pinkish color are waters that the state monitors that are not meeting standards. So most, if not all of our waters are not meeting standards that we have set out for it. So these are standards that the state, designated uses that the state has put for all of our streams, and then taken measurements to see whether we're meeting them. And you note, and there was some changes in the methodology, but in reality, we're not meeting them. And that really isn't changing drastically. So our water quality is not getting better. And so if you can go to the next slide. And in fact, what DEP says in the last report, that this water quality is declining. And I have another slide later on. So our best waters are degrading and our worst waters are getting a little bit better. But that is what DEP says. This is what our water quality monitoring network will show in our watershed. And I know many other groups are doing water quality monitoring, and they're showing very similar aspects. Next slide, please. So as part of this, what DEP did, understanding that our stormwater management rules, which were adopted in 2004, were not really up to the task. And so what they did is they made some changes to the rules, not a lot of changes, which the environmental community was really arguing for. But these rules were the green infrastructure rules that were published in March of this year. As part of the Watershed Institute project, not only do we work locally, but we also work state level. So I was involved in the stakeholdering process that DEP had to sort of develop these rules. And I will say there are ongoing additional stakeholdering meetings to talk about additional changes. So what this rule did, it was published in March of this year. It gave municipalities, and this is important, 1 year to adopt and implement a new ordinance. So by March 2nd of 2021, Aberdeen has to have a new ordinance in place and effective. And that rule did a couple things. Big picture, it changed how stormwater was managed, what techniques to use, green infrastructure. I want to be clear, it didn't change any of the standards. So we're all familiar, and especially the planning board, zoning board, you can see, the 80% TSS removal, the quantity and quality and recharge requirements, all of those standards, the 2, 10, and 100-year storms, all of that stayed the same. Just the technique that you used and developers will use to manage that stormwater has changed. The other thing they did in this is really implementing something they did in practice. So you have to manage water quality for impervious surfaces. They changed it to only motor vehicle surfaces. They also tightened the mitigation requirements if the town were to give a variance of the stormwater requirements. They're requiring deed notices. As I mentioned, they have 1 year to adopt a new ordinance. And then they also removed the non-structural strategies from the design aspects and moved them into the planning requirements for the municipality. You'll see that 2 of these items are bolded, and those 2 are bolded because we think those things were a mistake, and the town should look at not adopting those kind of aspects. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, Sophie? So, green infrastructure, in essence, the techniques that you use is methods that will either treat the runoff through infiltration into subsoils, using vegetation or soils to treat and filter that stormwater runoff, or store and reuse it. And there's a picture of a rain garden on our property. It actually was designed by our stormwater specialist and installed by incoming freshmen from Princeton University. So as Sophie mentioned, we have several rain gardens around our property, and showing that these practices are used. And our building has been around for 6 years now, brand new. All right, thank you. So I used to have 3 tables, and for those who did the webinar in September, Clay Emerson, who was an engineer, had those tables 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3, which were all the different techniques that were usable by applicants in meeting stormwater management. It's very technical, but the big sort of paradigm shift that these new rules did not only is requiring green infrastructure, but also changing the drainage areas. How large of an area can you drain to a stormwater management system, a BMP? And they really reduced that, because the theory is you want to decentralize your stormwater management. You want to mimic nature and bring the treatment as close to the source of the problem as possible. So you will see, the small scale bioretention, as we normally call them, rain gardens, has a 2.5 acre drainage area. So no more than 2.5 acres can drain to that. Same for the small scale infiltration basins, sand filters. These are the sort of normal techniques we normally see. But in a lot of areas in the state, what you will see is large developments, acres and acres and acres of development. And then at sort of the bottom of the site, tucked away, is your very large infiltration basin. That is going to be the thing of the past. You'll see these stormwater management systems spread throughout the development, mimicking nature, bringing it closer to the site. And you'll also see them sort of daisy chained, so that they all drain into each other and all sort of work together. So that's really a big paradigm shift. And once these things are adopted, you will start seeing developments change in the way things go forward. All right, thank you, Sophie. The other thing that rule did, as I mentioned, they implemented what sort of had been the practice. So the practice had been, you take your impervious surface. If it was roof runoff, you didn't have to do water quality treatment. And so what DEP did, they sort of put that in the rule. Motor vehicle traveled surfaces, or surfaces that could be traveled by a motor vehicle or planes, you have to treat for water quality. Surfaces like sidewalks, patios, and roofs, you do not have to treat under these new rules for water quality, and sort of implemented what the practice had always been. And they also did, and you'll note, a February 2nd of 2004 date, did sort of a look back provision. So it's a cumulative aspect. So if you have impervious surface, if you have a 1/4 acre, which is sort of the trigger for stormwater management, it's for major development, it's an acre soil disturbance or 1/4 acre of impervious. If you have an 1/8 of an acre of impervious surface that was built in March of 2004, and someone comes back and wants to add another 1/8 of an acre, that's now a 1/4 acre of impervious surface. You now have to do water quality, quantity, and recharge treatment. So there's a little aspect of a cumulative review, or almost a redevelopment aspect of the rule. And so that's another important thing to keep in mind. All right. The other thing they did under the rules that existed since at least 2004, towns could give a variance from the stormwater requirements if they had a mitigation plan in place. And those requirements required the applicant to undertake a mitigation project. And what DEP had been seeing was that these mitigation projects were a promise for something to occur in the future and didn't always happen. So they tightened up those mitigation requirements in the variance. So you can give a variance from the stormwater requirements if the applicant can show that it's technically impracticable to meet one or more of those standards, and then supported. So you have a quantity standard, you have a quantity standard, and you have a recharge standard. So the applicant has to do the analysis to show that you can't meet one or more of those standards. If that is the case, then a variance can be given for that standard. And the other thing they did was, if a site has 3 drainage areas, so water is traveling in 3 different directions on that site, so you would have 3 different stormwater management systems, the applicant can say, I can't meet it in drainage area 1, so I want relief for the entire site. They would get relief for that drainage area 1 and still would have to meet the standards in drainage area 2 and 3. And so again, what DP said was, if you can prove it, you can get your variance, but you have to take a mitigation project. Either that's one that has been identified in the town's mitigation plan or in criteria set out by the town. And you actually have to do that mitigation project before you break ground or at the same time. So it's no longer a promise for something to occur in the future. It actually has to happen. It has to be a mitigation project that addresses the relief that you got. So if you got relief for a recharge requirement, you have to do a recharge project. And you have to do it in the same drainage area or the same HUC 14. Excuse me. All right. And it's important to note, if you don't have a mitigation plan, you can't give variances. That's one sort of key aspect, but that hasn't changed. The next thing, so stormwater management, we've had modern stormwater management since 2004. And, you know, as I showed in the integrated water quality report, our water is not improving. You know, we set out in 1972 as the Federal Clean Water Act, a goal to restore our waters. We're not there yet. And the biggest chunk of our stormwater issue is because of our land use. So our stormwater rules, and it's explicit in the rules, will slow the rate of water pollution, will slow the rate of flooding increases, but is not designed to eliminate it or reverse it. It only addresses large projects, so that acre of soil disturbance and a quarter acre of new impervious. A lot of our communities, a lot of our older communities are not having those thresholds because you have smaller projects, smaller sites, or redevelopment sites. And it's not addressing existing stormwater problems. So the Watershed Institute came up with a series of recommendations for enhancements. Some of these were enhancements that we worked with Sustainable Jersey in their stormwater ordinance. They came out in 2018 and they're working on revising. Others are recommendations we pulled from EPA or other places. Right, thank you. And also, we all know, and Aberdeen's probably the downstream, but you also have property owners who are downstream of other property owners. And stormwater picks up pollution, it will scour out streams. And this is important when we talk about the standards, quality, quantity, and recharge. That quantity is misleading. It's not really a quantity reduction. So when the quantity reductions for the 2, 10, and 100-year storm, really what that is reducing the rate, the velocity, the speed by which that stormwater leaves the site. When you increase impervious surfaces, you are increasing the volume that is going to come off that site. So that quantity, and maybe that's something we should work on, having DEP change. It's not really a quantity reduction. All right. So, as I mentioned, our reports are showing water quality is not really improving. And I've highlighted a portion from, again, the 2016 report, which is the most recent, and basically showing that there's a high correlation, a high direct impact from our development aspect, the way we develop, to stormwater impairments and water quality impairments. So the next slide. In understanding that, so in DEP, when they published the new rules, they came out with a model. And in that model, they had a preamble. That's a lot of words. But the highlighted blue ones are the important ones, recognizing that municipalities may want to do better, may need to do better. So that language was specifically included in the model ordinance. And I will also say in the town's permit, their MS4 permit, which all towns have to regulate stormwater management, there's a provision in there for optional measures for towns to implement stronger requirements if they believe that is necessary. All right. So what we did in our model ordinance, our recommendations were to redefine the major development thresholds, what triggers a major development requirements, to address smaller developments, to address redevelopment, capture and treat stormwater on site more than what the rules do currently, enhance the analysis that's required for a project to be submitted, and then permitting and reporting requirements for stormwater management systems that get approved. So the trigger for stormwater management currently is 1 acre of soil disturbance, a 1/4 acre of impervious surface, whether it's motor vehicle or non. We have recommended you reduce that threshold to a 1/2 acre and 5,000 square feet of impervious surface. Also include redevelopment. So if you have a site that already has impervious cover, it is deconstructed, removed, and replaced. That should trigger stormwater requirements. And also retain on site the 95th percentile rain event. Keep water on sites to sort of address that volume issue. So the reduction in the thresholds, that was in part, that came from a recommendation from EPA back in 2014 when they were looking at our stormwater management system here in New Jersey. They recommended that 5,000 square foot trigger as being appropriate for New Jersey being a highly densely developed and populated state. What makes sense in Wisconsin or South Dakota doesn't always make sense in New Jersey, and that's what these standards were. That acre and 1/2 acre were really sort of based upon. And then a minor development. I will also say for the major development, there are multiple towns throughout the state that have reduced that threshold. There's quite a few in the Pinelands area. Princeton did that in 2017 in our watershed. And then also a minor development. Again, this is something that there's probably about 2 or 3 dozen towns in the state that have a minor development requirement. We have said that if you build 250 square feet of impervious surface, you should treat 2 gallons of stormwater per square foot. Again, retain on site that 95th percentile storm, but also allow a flexibility, a waiver, which is different than the major development variance process, but a waiver and a mitigation fee. And what we did when we said the 2 gallons per square foot, what we tried to do is devise a system that was very easy to implement, didn't require an engineer to design a complicated system and do a ton of calculations. This is something, ideally your landscape architect, your landscaper, your architect who helped to design your small structure, your addition, can implement as part of your landscaping when you do your addition or your project. And there's a lot of tools out there to help you, sort of figure out how big your rain garden or your bio retention should be. So that was the goal, to sort of design something that was simple, easy, plug and play, didn't require a lot of analysis, both from the applicant's perspective, but the municipalities. All right. And again, like I said, there's about 2 or 3 dozen towns that have a minor development requirement. I think the smallest is about 200 square feet. And I think the largest might be about 1,000 square feet as a trigger. And about that 2 gallons per square foot seems to be, give or take what a lot of those towns are doing. There are a lot of the towns that have 1,000 square foot trigger, say 3 inches of infiltration per square foot, which is about that 2 gallons. As I mentioned, there might be circumstances for a minor development where you do not want to do stormwater management or can't. So if you have soils that just won't allow you to do it, you have you have a site that is really impervious, and you really can't do that, or in one place someone wanted to do a rain garden, but it was in the floodplain that flooded quite frequently. That was the best place to put a rain garden, but that didn't make sense. So to create a waiver fee to allow some flexibility, again, this would be only for minor development, not major, because major has certain requirements under the rules. Again, have the applicant show that really this doesn't make sense, you can't do it, and have that fee we're recommending based upon the cost of implementing stormwater management, so that the town can use that money and do improvements to the stormwater management system throughout the town, and that it's not a disincentive to do stormwater management on site. So if you've got to pay for it anyway, you're more likely to do it unless you absolutely can't. Right, next slide. And then to enhance the analysis of stormwater management. So, you see these stormwater management reports, a lot of things don't necessarily get taken consideration. What are the on-site features? What are the adjacent features? Are there forests? Are there core forests? So are there wooded areas that are larger and that have over a 300-foot edge, because we don't like edge forests for invasive species and other survival. What are the short-term and long-term impacts? So even if you stay out of a wetland, but you starve that wetland of the surface flow by redirecting all the stormwater from that wetland, what's the long-term survivability of that wetland? Take a look at that. And same thing with streams. What are the impacts to adjacent property owners? As I mentioned, one of our recommendations was not to adopt that motor vehicle traveled surface distinction, treat all stormwater. Even roof runoff is not clean. It might be cleaner than a road, but it is not clean. It collects pollution, it collects leaf litter, it collects bird poo, to put it bluntly. All that rushes off, and if you don't treat it in a state that is not meeting water quality standards, you've missed some low-hanging fruit. The non-structural strategies I mentioned came out. So those are 9 strategies: disconnecting impervious surface, using low impact construction techniques, maintaining the existing site conditions, vegetation. Those came out. We think that's a mistake, and sort of as an extreme example, you could take a site cleared of all the vegetation, regrade the entire site to be completely flat, put a rain garden in, you've met the rule, but you kind of missed the concept and the intent behind the rule of using nature, mimicking nature to meet your stormwater requirements. So we think those should stay in as just good practice. And DEP is looking on how to bring that back, but they decided to take it out in the meantime. Next slide, please, Sophie. And then there's something called total maximum daily load. As I mentioned in those slides with the streams with the red, we have a lot of waterways that aren't meeting standards. And what DEP will do under the Clean Water Act is create, in essence, a budget for that stream, that waterway. How much pollution can that waterway take and meet standards? And then they divvy up that budget to existing sources. But that doesn't really get implemented in New Jersey very well. And so if you have a stream that already is impaired for total suspended solids, the way our stormwater rules work is you can discharge the same amount of total suspended solids into that stream as another stream that's not impaired. But yet that stream has a budget that says you're supposed to be reducing the loading that's already going there. So we think integrating a look at the TMDLs and implementing that and getting developers to take that into consideration as they design their sites is important. DEP has a TMDL lookup tool, so you can put in your county and your town. It will show you all of the TMDLs that may exist for your town and implement those. So we think, and I also mentioned your MS4 permit, again, will have a clause in there that will say the town should understand that there may be TMDLs that are applicable to your municipality, and you should think of things that you could implement to help address that. So that is another thing we think should be added. And then lastly, again, there has always been a maintenance requirement for our stormwater management systems. It's one of those things that has largely, in many areas, been ignored. The MS4 permit that was issued to the municipalities back in effective 2018 really upped that maintenance requirement. And there's a requirement for the municipality every year to report to DEP that all of the stormwater management systems are being maintained and operating appropriately. both publicly and privately. So we've created a system where there's an annual stormwater permit that the property owners would get. They would submit reports to the town showing that these things are being inspected and maintained and fixed where appropriate, allowing towns to audit compliance, make sure these reports are actually accurate. And that would help the municipality at the end of that reporting cycle sign off and say, yes, we know what we have, we know it's being maintained, and we know it's functioning as designed. All right. And then, just as we mentioned, there's a process. The ordinance has to be passed by the municipality, has to go to the county for review. The county has 60 days to act on that. Otherwise, it's deemed approved. And these things have to be in effect by March 2021. As Sophie mentioned, we've given a handful of webinars on this topic. The green infrastructure one was Gabe Mahan from DEP who wrote these rules, Clay Emerson and Brian Friedlich from Kleinfelder and Princeton Hydro gave sort of the engineer's perspective. And then we've done a bunch of additional webinars on it. We have a green infrastructure certification course for installers and maintainers of these systems that is on February 4th and 5th. And then we're putting together a maintenance training course for public works departments so that when they see these rain gardens, they see these systems, they know how to maintain them. There are infamous stories throughout the state where rain gardens have been put in. No one told the public works department and they came in and mowed them 2 weeks later, which isn't necessarily what you're supposed to be doing. So we're putting together a training course for the municipality. So once these things start going in, we can maintain them. And so, again, thank you so much. Sophie and I are here. We're a resource. And we gave a lot of information. I'm sure we'll have some questions, but if you go home tonight or turn off your Zoom and say, oops, I should have asked this, we're here to help answer your questions and guide you through your thought process and your process to adopt an ordinance.
Well, Michael, this is Fred Tagliarini, Mayor. I can't thank you enough for your presentation. And Sophie, thank you so very much. We are pressed for time as the council is due to be in workshop. And I would say one of the best things about Zoom is having everybody on as we've had tonight. And not only that, we recorded it. So anything that we might have missed, we'll certainly have on record. So I'm sure we'll be reaching out to both of you again. I want to thank Paul for setting this up. At this point, I'm sorry that we really can't take questions. Yes, Brian.
I agree with you, but Mr. Phelps actually has had his hand up for quite some time during the presentation. I know we are pressed, but you may want to just
go ahead.
Let him have his question there, because like I said, he was for a while.
Sure.
As it applies to the zoning board, we have a lot of large apartment complexes coming about, and our engineers do the runoff, I guess, calculations. But is there any way we can figure out for Aberdeen how much more developable land we're going to really be left with in the near future?
I think yes. I mean, in part based upon your zoning code. I can see what our GIS department has available for you. It used to be as part of the water quality management plans, you had to do that analysis, but that got removed a few years ago. But if you would like to reach out to me, tomorrow or next week, we can see what we can do to help.
Also, then a vacant land adjustment that probably could form the basis of that data for our affordable housing settlement from a few years back. I think we had the vacant land adjustment that would help us do that. It's not much, but this also sounds like it applies to redevelopment as well, which is obviously of vital importance in our town with aging structure stock in many places. I had a particular question just by way, just for a better understanding from my point of view. So obviously, you know, the problem with this issue is that the economics of how real estate development in New Jersey work are diametrically opposed to all the concepts that you just presented to us. And so as governing body officials, we obviously have an obligation to balance those two interests. And so in the one place that was of most particular concern to me wasn't within the major, it was the minor development part. So, you know, if someone puts on a small addition on their house or a patio, under your recommended enhanced rules, it seemed that would require stormwater mitigation. And you had mentioned in your very timely presentation, thank you, that you had ideas about how that would not be a burden or require an engineering review. And that, I think, I was hoping you could expand on that real quickly, relatively briefly, because I know we have a meeting to get to, but also because that would be our biggest, I saw some of those rules that you put up there and they seem very commonsensical, have a lot of common sense to them, especially the non-structural mitigation aspects, obviously, right? So that's a no-brainer from a municipal perspective. But I was hoping you could expound on what is a minor stormwater mitigation if someone has a new driveway or wants to make a loop driveway or something like that, because that's where the rubber meets the road for us as elected officials with our voters and trying to balance those interests. I think Brian has to unmute you.
I was able to do it, I think.
Okay,
So the goal was, and the presumption is when you do an addition, you add, you know, a patio, you add, or you just have a small commercial structure that doesn't meet the major development. 99% of the time, you're doing landscaping as part of that project. You're making that site look, you know, pretty and aesthetic. Have that landscaping do double duty, become a rain garden, do the filtration. You know, if you do the landscaping yourself, it's probably $3 or $4 a square foot. If you do, you know, the excavation and digging, if you're having a contractor do it, it may be $8 to $12 a square foot, depending on what you're doing, based upon a project we did in Hopewell Borough, going back after the fact and doing some stuff. So if you've got the excavator there, that, you know, you might get some economies of scale. But again, you know, very simple gallons, square foot, hopefully not a whole lot of calculations to do it.
Okay, thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're thinking about things like dry wells and things like I saw that in your, okay. Okay, so I mean, that's, I think that will form a large portion. I might reach out to you again. Because obviously the data on what permits people pull in town and the average cost of one of those kind of improvements plus the square footage and, well, more common circumstance here in town is people have a single driveway and they put in a double driveway in many places. So that would be the thing as just, you know, from a local perspective, we'd be looking at. But I was honestly one of the most depressing presentations I've seen in a while because I see the economics going in the reverse. But, you know, excellent work by, you know, you guys in trying to get down in the weeds and make sure this happens everywhere. So thank you.
Thank you. Sorry we took so much time.
No, it's very important to us, and we thank you again very much. So
Here, just before you close out,
yeah.
Paul from the Environmental Committee has a comment.
Okay, Paul.
Thanks a lot for giving me a minute. Thank you too for coming out and giving this presentation. My question to the council and everybody else here is, as this ordinance, the ordinance is a requirement, obviously, you know, from the state, you know, before next March, and you guys have some sort of process for developing it and, you know, and getting it adopted. How do we, you know, make sure that some of the recommendations are actually considered, you know, during the development processes? This ordinance?
Mayor, if I could, I had an idea on
Yeah.
that.
Go ahead.
So I think Mike mentioned what you were presenting to us was your recommendations for, let's quote unquote, the most, or what, from your policy perspective, the best municipal ordinance, right? And there's a minimum state ordinance. So I think this process begins with a review of the Watershed Institute's model ordinance, the state minimum ordinance by our engineers who, I'll be honest with you, I heard a lot of terms, I don't know what they meant. And then we sit down and we make policy decisions based on what's been applied to by our zoning department and what we feel we can include, what we can't include. And then I believe it goes to the planning board once it's a zoning ordinance, right? So the planning board is going to get to review all of that and give us their opinion on those distinctions and differences as well. And I'd be happy to receive informal input from the zoning board, but that was my thought. If anyone else has anything else, please let me know.
Sure. I think you're on the right track, Gregory, Councilman Cannon, because something like this will be a rather large situation. So I think we'll probably go into committee, and in fact, maybe we'll just be able to include some environmentalists with a couple of council people who'd like to work on this and get it done. So I think the plan that you've laid out is a very sensible plan, and let's try and do the best we can on this because it's such an important issue. And we're with you 100% on trying to clean up the water and everything else. And I can't thank you enough, Sophie and Mike, for being with us tonight, Paul for setting it up. And I don't think this is the end of our conversation, except for this moment in time. So I thank you. I think.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but before they leave, do we have the model ordinance from the Watershed Institute?
I'll send it to Paul tomorrow morning.
Please do that. I don't know if Carrie Fluke sent it in from DEP side. And by the way, I told her that we were doing this tonight, and she was thrilled. So so they know that we were all here together tonight, and so we also can lean on her too. So we'll certainly get it done. We really will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. And nobody has to really go anyway, except that we're going to, and anybody who would want to leave, of course, you may. And we're going to go right into the Township Council workshop. And Brian, are we still recording?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so this meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspaper, and notice that this meeting has been posted in public places. The next meeting of this council will be on November the 5th, 2020. Welcome to the October 15th workshop meeting of the Aberdeen Township Council. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cannon.
Here.
Councilman Hirsch.
Here.
Councilwoman Kelly.
Here.
Councilwoman Montone. Councilman Swindell. Deputy Mayor Martucci. Mayor Tagliarini.
Here, and as I said before, the deputy mayor is recuperating, and we send him our very, very best. He sounds terrific, but just may not be up to 2 or 3 hours on a Zoom tonight. So we certainly wish him the very best. Brian, as we normally do and traditionally do, could you walk us through the workshop agenda, please?
Yes. So item number 1 is a resolution to go into the cooperative pricing agreement with the Cranford Police Department. Resolution is attached, of course. This is actually the township actually has been members of the co-op for many, many years, over 12, but we actually haven't had a resolution sometimes. So me and the QPA discussed, and we just wanted to make sure, so it's been many years, we wanted to put a resolution back on just authorizing this co-op. It's actually a very good co-op. It's been around for some time as well. So we are approving this to move forward for purchasing, again, off of co-op contracts instead of always doing the bidding, but it's another mechanism for the township. Number 2 is relief from payment of property taxes for disabled veterans, for a disabled veteran. Number 3 is a performance guarantee release for 307 Springlong Avenue, Block 140, Lot 1.02. A resolution and letter from CME Associates are dated October 8th. That was a single-family dwelling, and that was the performance guarantee was for drainage. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. Sanitary and water services and trenching. And then number 4, 4 was put on, and I have to apologize. I am going to ask to have this table to the November 5th meeting, so this can be reviewed by my office and also to meet with legal counsel for a final review of this on the purchasing standards. most likely everything will be able to go back on again for the November 5th meeting. It just needs a little bit more review, and I miscommunicated with the QPA when I was going over this contract. So I will ask during the regular part of the meeting if a member of council would table this to November 5th. And then we do have an executive session this evening. I have a few items for executive session at the end, and I will have a short report during the regular meeting for myself. And I will also ask our PIO and Deputy Recreation Director to just give a small report on an event that we're going to be doing for Halloween. That's it, Mayor.
Well, that's very good. Thank you very much, Brian. I greatly appreciate it. Are there any questions from the council members on any of these issues? And Councilman Cannon, I think I might have asked you if you're comfortable with it and you so move to do it, if you would remove that from the regular agenda when it comes to that point.
Sure, no problem. I just have one question.
Yes.
The Cranford Cooperative Purchasing, what are we buying through that? Is that
Most likely, we're just making sure our budget's correct. We have a vehicle for the construction department that was capitalized from 2019, but I believe it's 2019, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Either 2019 or it's still from 2020. But honestly, getting vehicles with the pandemic has been a nightmare. So we actually had, with the budget and everything, they finally came up. One of our companies, one of our memberships within the co-op called us back and said they do have a vehicle that came within our budget range. And again, like we said, we just didn't want to go and do it off the membership since we really haven't had a resolution approving the membership in quite some time. So most likely, as long as the number stays the same, we would be purchasing a vehicle for the construction department inspectors to use as a fleet vehicle.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that any other questions on the workshop items for this evening? Brian, do we see any hands? I don't have everybody on my screen.
I am checking one more time. Yeah, but I'm actually on 2 pages too, so I'm just double checking.
Yeah, okay.
And nope, nothing from any other members. Nope.
Okay, good. So I'd like, Councilman Cannon, would you give us a motion to go into regular meeting?
Sure, so moved.
Okay.
Second?
Second on that,
I'll
please?
Second.
I heard it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. This meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspaper and the meeting has been posted in public places. The next meeting will be on November 5th, 2020. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Aberdeen Township Council for October 15th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cannon?
Here.
Councilman Hirsch?
Here.
Councilwoman Kelly?
Here.
Councilwoman Montone?
Here.
Councilman Swindell? Deputy Mayor Martucci? Mayor Tagliarini?
Here, thank you. Just give me 1 second, please. I should have.
Right, forgot the flag.
Yep. Okay. Changed rooms tonight and the flag was in the other room. But of course, first we'll do a moment of silence. And of course, we always take a moment to thank our fighting men and women who are on our soil and foreign soil to allow us to meet in forums like this. And of course, we're keeping in mind all doctors, nurses, CERT, fire, police, first responders who are out there as our first line defense for this COVID. We also like to keep memories of everyone we've lost to this dreaded disease and this pandemic. And of course, we also hope and pray soon there'll be a vaccine, and we keep in mind all the researchers working on that also. And I like to allow you now to have a moment for your own intentions. Okay. And as I heard someone say, as I ran to the other room, we do have our temporary flag that we do so well. So I'm going to ask you all if you would give a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm never going to get rid of this, even when we're meeting again in public. So thank you for that. And right now, I'd like to ask members of the council if they have any reports they would like to give us right now as part of this meeting. You can all just start. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to report on? I can see that voting seems to be going very well at Aberdeen Town Hall. Karen shaking her head. She's observed a constant.
Voting is going very well.
Very, very well. So we're so proud to have that drop box, and we'll probably get a report when this is over, how many people use the drop box, how many people use US mail. Those who are disabled who are allowed to use the voting machines. Aberdeen does have 3 locations, Karen, if I'm correct, the 2 firehouses and town hall.
Right.
That you can come vote. If you don't want to use the ballot supplied to you, you can come and get another ballot. And Karen, what else could we possibly say? ADA, have they determined who is disabled and who is not disabled yet for you?
If you cannot physically vote by paper ballot, and then what you have to do is have a affidavit, then you could vote on the machine.
Okay, and we're prepared. We have 3 locations, correct?
Yes, yes, there'll be 3 machines.
Okay, very good. And does anyone else have any reports whatsoever?
I have one, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So the paved and lined Lloyd Road from Route 34 to our border. I don't know if it didn't get Marlboro's permission or what happened with that, but so the county, and day by day I mean the county. So it looks great, it's awesome, but I'm pretty sure the mayor and I went out there with the county engineer at some point and explained that we were willing to pass a local ordinance to stop a left turn onto Overly if that allowed them to expand the turning lane. They said that wasn't necessary and that they were going to reline the street with the longer turn lane, and that it was basically driver beware, obviously follow the brake lights in front of you if someone was making a turn into Overly. We offered all kinds of assistance, local cooperation, whatever they needed, and they painted back the big yellow lines that stops everyone going past Overly. And so really, the road is awesome. I'm not complaining, it's great, but it hasn't made any improvement to the traffic situation on the weekends there when people are going pumpkin picking, or in the summertime when they go to the beach. Or during rush hour. That really hasn't happened in 6, 7, 8 months. But, I don't know what we can do about that other than go back to the county engineer's office and try to work with them on that issue.
Very, very good point, Councilman. And when I spoke with the engineer just prior to this paving job, I said, you're welcomed. We're open arms to this paving job that is so desperately needed. I cannot find out why they stopped where they stopped. Aberdeen is paved, but at the same time, they did the stretch from 34 to the F section on Lloyd Road. They were doing Tennant Road from 79, and I really can't tell you how much past the Little League field over there. So I guess they gave Marlboro, or Marlboro must have said, hey, could you do this instead? But we certainly have had a great job. When I spoke to Mr. Ratour, he said that he was going to reach out to the chief. Unfortunately, I believe he's on vacation tonight, so we can take this up with the chief. He was going to talk to the chief and our traffic people about that particular plan. So I don't think it's a dead issue, but something that we still have.
There's plenty of capacity there to get those cars through. It's a matter of light timing and queuing.
Yeah.
And so, I'd like to continue to work on that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
with
because
our new manager.
Yes.
pushing that forward. And then I had a second issue as well, and Paul's on the line, and I know that Kizzy's still here. I don't know if Mr. Schuler's still here, but I go down the beach a lot. So the scouring off the west end of northwest end of the seawall is reaching. It's not critical, I think, yet to threaten our infrastructure, but it's probably 24 to 36 months or shorter than that with a very good storm before the bay reaches Ocean Boulevard or meets up with the reeds. As many of you, I'm sure that I know a lot of the council know, the seawalls, any seawall is going to scour off its ends. And so on Beach Drive, it spins off into Keyport Harbor, but on the other end, it's scouring out the property. I know we have a tentative plan with Congressman Pallone and Earl Naval Weapons Station to get the sand here from their dredging project. And I know that that's on its way, but I'd like to at least ask the Environmental Commission to start to put, I think we should have a contingency plan if that sand does not arrive. That if we have to go down with a front end loader and take the sand off the groin at Whale Creek and put it back on the other side of the beach, even if it's temporarily, I'd like to know what the most environmentally appropriate time to do that is, with the natural wildlife down there. And I'd like to start making a plan to move the sand back on our own if we're not going to get new sand until 2024 or 2023. I'd like to have a plan in place because I don't think there may be a problem tomorrow, but the water is getting awfully close to the shoreline, and I'd like to have a plan in place. So that was what I wanted to bring up tonight, and while we have an environmental board on to give us maybe their advice about when's the best time to move the sand if we have to move it.
They can think about that. We're always in contact.
I didn't pause to ask for an answer.
Yeah,
I just wanted to get everyone thinking about that, because there may come a time before that sand arrives from Earl that we have to move sand around our beach to make sure that our pumping station and road is protected. And I don't want to dig up turtle eggs or horseshoe crab eggs.
Yeah, there's no turtle eggs there, but that was actually part of the Rutgers idea to move the sand down from the Whale Creek area back into there. And what I can tell you is we'll find that information out for you. Okay, I know exactly where you're talking about, and I do know that every time there's a big storm, DEP's been pulling the sand off the road and put it back over the fence because the bay comes into the road. And every time, it's yeah, you're right. It's just one more big storm before you lose that completely. So I don't see it lasting through till next spring, to tell you the truth. The last time I've gone down there, it looked pretty bad. So we'll find that out for you. I'm pretty sure that we're coming into the best time to do that. So and you have an update on the sand from Earl, because I did run into, on the Sustainable Jersey meeting, I ran into Amber, who was on that walk, who was in the county planning board. And she said that, because I said, what's the status of that? We haven't heard anything about it. She said, we've got a consultant hired. December or January, we'll have more detail for you. So that's their timeline, okay? You mentioned Pallone and whatnot. That's why I thought maybe you knew something else.
No. In fact, I was going to ask you the same question: is if we heard from those folks from Earl and the county about that plan, and I'm sure the pandemic must have held that up also. And we really have to touch base with them to see if that project of dredging Earl.
Right. I've got reports from multiple sources that they're dredging right now. A person sent me a video today. I had a report last week from somebody that worked there saying they were doing the dredging right now. So they're coming up with the sand. The sand's coming out. I don't know if you guys have any plan at all to how to distribute the sand, get it there, or whatnot. They said they'd barge it into a certain, close range where they could get in. It's very shallow there. So, that all has to be seen, I guess, right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. We have to follow up with them and to see what we're going to have to do. I think the last time Paul and Councilwoman Montone was with us, I believe they said they were going to barge it up, and that was good because they didn't have to get permits from different towns all the way up from Earl to Aberdeen, and they would bring it up by barge and probably use that process of blowing it up on the beach, and then we'll have to make sure we can do what we can internally. So we'll follow up on that, but I'm glad that you.
My concern is just that I don't want to get like I just don't want to get caught in between. So
Yeah.
we have a long range plan to bring up a lot more sand here, but we don't know when it's arriving and the scour continues. So I just want to I don't want to get caught without a plan if they say, oh, well, we couldn't, there was a storm and we can't dredge until 2022.
Where it just all falls apart. You don't get any at all, right?
Yeah.
Right. I want to continue. Yeah, both. Really, we have to be able to help ourselves. I mean, we've talked about bringing the sand in ourselves on trucks, and price that out. But with the free sand from Earl, we're crazy to do that. But I don't want to get caught in between, the ultimate solution, a contingency plan, and then the sand never arrives. So I'd like to, that was why I was bringing it up now in advance.
As far as I'm concerned, there's been some disagreement on this, but as far as I'm concerned, the sand that washed down there past the berm, toward Well Creek, still belongs to Aberdeen. Some people say it belongs to Old Bridge now, but I believe, it's the divider, still the creek. Every person I've talked to said the dividing line is still the creek. So, as long as it's on our side of the creek.
I like that position.
Yeah, that sounds
We need as
good.
much sand as we can get.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
What's the chances, Paul? What are the chances of the sand that is on our side of the creek eventually, if we don't move it over to where we need to move it to, of it migrating over to the other side of the creek and then becomes Old Bridge's sand, and we lose out on all of the sand that's accumulated there?
But what's been going on is the creek has just been moving. The sand stays on our side of the creek, and the creek just moves further and further down the Old Bridge beach. So, and that's been going on for over a decade easily. So where the sand really doesn't migrate across the creek, so we're not worried about that. But at one point, Old Bridge is going to say, hey, that's clearly ours,
There's a groin out there that catches the sand and then basically sprays it, I guess, like a windshield wiper. And so but it's not going to go past that groin from the old Cliffwood beachfront. That's where it stops. You can go out there and see the dead line of deeper water and the sand. But that sand has that. I mean, the other question as well, and why I'm bringing this up now, is it involves, where are we getting the sand? How are we going to move it? And then I'm not sure we have the equipment to get out there and get some of that sand. So do we need a specialty operator? I just wanted to start that conversation now before it's too late, is my point. Or more specifically, the sand from Earl is too late.
Yeah. Okay.
And we never really talked about cost. We never were really sure if there was a cost that was coming with that sand from Earl either.
No, DPW director gave us a cost for the sand, but the actual.
No, not that, Greg. The Earl, the whole Earl situation with what they were doing. Whether we would, because they kind of alluded to the fact that there was going to probably be something we needed to contribute into that. So I think we need to be prepared if we're going to be doing that too. So I think you need that information.
That's a great point from budget purposes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and the county's part of that. Their county's actually coordinating this thing, so we need to stay in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were part of this whole thing. Absolutely. Good point, Councilman. Any other members of council with any reports? Or I think we had a great grand opening down at LA Fitness at the new shopping center on Route 35. Finally, part of the delay was the pandemic, and they are opened. We went down there for an opening. It's absolutely beautiful, and they're just in a membership drive right now. So we just wish them the best, and we cut the ribbon and welcome to Aberdeen, and the landlord now says Jersey Mike is coming in there, and other places. And as soon as he has a list, we'll get that out and help publicize it. But it's nice to see that center coming back on its feet, and it was a good day being there. Anything else before I go to the manager with his report? Okay, Mr. Manager. And by the way, happy birthday. Is Brian still with us?
You're muted, Brian.
He's muted.
Sorry, I had the train go by, so I turned it off.
Okay.
But thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, a very happy birthday. And
Thank
you
you.
know,
Happy
Birthday, Brian.
yeah. But I don't know why you called me at 7 o'clock and said, how come we didn't give you a birthday on your as a day off? It's 7 o'clock this morning. No.
I told you every year I always have a meeting on my birthday. That's for sure. There's always a meeting.
Well, I'm glad you're spending it with us. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. So nothing too crazy. I have a small thing for me. I have a report from the police chief. He is on vacation this week, so he did send me a report to put in. And then I will ask Brittany to give a little report too on a Halloween contest that we're going to do in town. Mine really is that I've been talking about it, I think, almost for 2 months, but we have another drop box in town now, an actual real secure drop box for regular regular township business. It is across from the Monmouth County ballot box. It's a brown steel mailbox structure. It has our town seals on it, and as of tomorrow, there will be a sign put up so everyone knows that it's a drop box for a township business. If you're dropping something off or need to pick something up, it's not for the ballot box or for any ballots or anything else that is non-municipal township related. So we do have, like I said, there's a sign for the ballot box, which is next to the payphone. And then on the far wall to the left of the box, of the ballot box, is our town drop box, which is like I said, it's a brownish gray color and has our town seals on it. And it has a sign above it that says drop box, and it has all the departments that would be, that you can drop it off. But you can do anything from construction permits to regular envelopes, and it's a locked box, so no one can try to get anything out of it either. Our chief gave me a report before this afternoon. Number one, since our last meeting, our COVID update, since our last meeting on 10/1, we've had 12 new positive cases, giving us now 21 active positive cases. That's actually pretty much doubled since our last time. We had 7 on 10/1, and we've now jumped up to about 12. Sorry, 21. That's putting our number right now with a few discrepancies at about 292. I think our last report today from the county was 295, but again, of course, sometimes it varies with the address and zip code. So the chief's official number is 292. The police department passed the annual state jail cell inspection by the Department of Corrections. The municipal building security camera system has been upgraded to increase memory. That was actually a request of the Board of Elections for that upgrade for when it's monitoring the election box. So we had to just increase our memory a little bit more, and in the long run, it helps us out because it'll keep for the rest of the cameras that are around the perimeter of the building. And then also, the chief's actually been working on this directly, but Aberdeen resident Ella Mitchell turns 100 or has turned 100, and she's getting a birthday parade this Saturday at 3 p.m. And the car parade is meeting at 2:45 at the Cliffwood Avenue School. So if anyone wants to participate for Ella Mitchell's 100th, please meet so it starts at 3 p.m., but they're meeting at 2:45. If anyone wants to join in at Cliffwood Avenue School, Chief's was contacted by the family, and he's worked on this himself to make sure that some of the fire department and the police department will be a part of this little celebration for Ella. And the rest from the chief is a couple, looks like it's contractual and personnel, which will be for executive session at the end of the meeting. And I will turn it now over to Brittany, and she will give an update on Halloween.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I just wanted to update everyone and let you know that we would be doing two different Halloween contests this year in lieu of the PBA's Trunk or Treat. So the first contest is a Halloween house decorating contest. How that will work is I will release the flyer and all the rules and everything tomorrow, but all of our residents in Aberdeen will have until Sunday, October 25th at midnight to send me an email with their photo of their house, their name, their address, cell phone, and email address. And then on October 26th, it will be posted onto our Facebook page, all the photos that I receive. And basically the residents of Aberdeen will vote on the house they like best. Whoever wins, we're gonna have first, second, and third place. That will be determined by October 31st at midnight. Whoever wins will win a $150 Amazon gift card. Second place will be a $100 gift card to Amazon. And third place will be a $75 gift card. And that will be, the winners will be contacted on November 2nd. The second contest we're gonna be doing is more for the kids. So that's actually a face mask decorating contest. So it's the face mask that we've all been wearing. Kids 14 and under can participate. It's basically the same scenario. They have until next Sunday at midnight to submit a photo to my email address with all their information. These are kids from 0 to 14 years old. And the next day on the 26th, all the photos will be posted into an album on our township Facebook page, and our residents will vote for the winners for each age group. So there'll be 0 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 11, and 12 to 14. A winner from each category, and all winners will receive a $25 gift card. We'll figure out the place. We're thinking maybe Target or something, because at least they can get a toy or something there since there's no Toys R Us or anything. And then they'll be notified on Monday, November 2nd as well. So I will release all the information tomorrow with a flyer, all the rules to our website, Facebook, and do an email blast. But we're hoping to get a great response and, keep it festive for everybody through all this pandemic and COVID-19. So that's all I have for that.
That's pretty good. Might I suggest using our hobby shop?
I did, but you know what it is? I talked to a couple of the other recreation. They thought for 12 to 14, they might not be interested in the hobby shop. So that's why we thought if we all just did Target for all of them, it appeals to all kids of all ages. They can get anything there. Good. So we were trying to keep it local, but we were trying not to get too crazy either.
So nobody wants dinner at Lavotti's when you're 7 years old either, right? So
it's more like mom and dad are using their gift card.
Yes, I heard DeMarco sub. So very good, Brittany. Thank you for keeping our kids in mind, and another great idea. Greatly appreciate it. Any other reports,
That's
Brian?
it, Mayor. No,
Okay.
that's it.
All right. So it looks like we're up to number 5, which is the hearing of the citizens. And at this point, it's what's on the agenda for this evening that we can be asked any questions or what philosophies or whatever. So if anybody has any questions on the hearing on this agenda, please raise your hand. Let Brian know so that we'll be able to address your question on these agenda items.
Mr. Phelps?
Yes, when you're bring up the consideration for tax relief for disabled veterans, I just wanted to make a comment that my closest friend who lived in Aldridge died about a month and a half ago from COVID. And his wife found out that she's not entitled to that tax relief going forward. And they have a significant taxes in Old Bridge. So I'd like the council to take that into consideration when you bring that up.
Okay. Yeah, and I believe I read somewhere, Mr. Phelps, that I think the state was putting out a directive that this tax relief can be even if a veteran did not leave our soil. I think originally the qualification was to be an active duty. So we're going to look into that. I can't even.
Our resolution act, and I don't believe our tax assessor's on yet. He will be coming on later on. But for our resolution, ours does this exemption does extend to the surviving spouse of a veteran for as long as the spouse is the owner of the residence in the property in question.
Oh, that's great. That's good. I'm glad you clarified that. Very, very good.
Thank
Tell
you.
your friend to move to Aberdeen. So, very good. Any other questions, Brian? Can you see if anybody would like to be recognized?
I see no other hands at this time, Mayor.
Okay, very good. So as Brittany led into the topic of Halloween, this is something we do all the time. Sometimes we get criticism for it. This is a traditional thing asked for by our police, but there is a Halloween proclamation that we do all the time. Whereas the time of Halloween is traditionally a period when children enjoy the pleasure of trick or treat and should have every protection in the pursuit and enjoyment. Whereas the residents of Aberdeen Township should have the pleasure of contributing and enjoying their children's celebration. Whereas the residents of Aberdeen Township at the same time should assure that their properties are being well protected. So on behalf of the Aberdeen Town Council, we do declare for the evenings of Friday, October 30th and Saturday, October 31st, that there is a curfew extending to all children under the age of 17, beginning 8:30 p.m. and ending at 6:00 a.m. the following morning, and that this curfew is in every way to ensure the provisions of enforcement contained in an adopted to amend curfew ordinance. So this has been signed. I'll get this back to you tomorrow, Karen, this proclamation. And while we're on the subject of Halloween, Brittany, I can't thank you enough for those two ideas. And I'd like to just tell everybody who's listening or will watch on Zoom in the next few days that the best thing to do for all of us is to follow the CDC guidelines. I know the manager and I have transferred back and forth some CDC stuff, and he had a great thing from the Managers Association. So those CDC guidelines, Brittany, I'm sure you'll put them out again on Facebook, and we're just going to try and make Halloween as safe as possible for our little residents as best as we can. And there's a lot of ideas. I'm not going to get into it now. I've seen some very clever things. I've seen 6-foot tubes, hollow carpet tubes to shoot the candy down the tubes to the kids. So we've seen a lot of very interesting things, but go over the CDC guidelines. It even gives a house an opportunity to go dark and everything else. So please just be so careful. The children were told, I think the CDC guidelines, though it is a contest for us, is that a mask, a Halloween mask as we know it, is not a safe enough situation, and we're just concerned about the children's health wearing 2 masks if not possible. So maybe decorating that mask is a great idea, the face mask, Brittany. So thank you so much, and we hope that our children and the parents enjoy Halloween as they traditionally do. It's a Saturday this year. May it be nice weather so that they can enjoy it. Moving on, I would like to ask Councilman Hirsch for a motion on number 7 for minutes.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from workshop and regular meeting of June 18th, 2020.
Second.
Second on that, please.
Second.
All right.
Councilman Cannon.
Yes.
Councilman Hirsch.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Councilwoman Montone.
Yes.
Councilman Swindell. Mayor Tagliarini.
Yes, thank you very much. Would someone like to make a motion on 8A, please?
Yes, to the mayor and my fellow council members, I would like to make a motion to introduce resolution 2020-117 and move it for its adoption.
Have a second?
Second.
Second.
Councilman Cannon,
Yes.
Councilman Hirsch,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montone,
Yes.
Councilman Swindell,
Yes.
Mayor Taglerini.
Yes, thank you very much. 8B, please.
Yes. Mayor Taglerini and fellow council members, I would like to make a motion to accept resolution 2020-118.
Second.
Second.
Councilman Cannon,
Yes.
Councilman Hirsch,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montone,
Yes.
Councilman Swindell,
Yes.
Mayor Taglerini.
Yes, thank you very much. 8C, please.
To the mayor, my fellow council members, I would like to make a motion to accept resolution number 2020-119.
Second.
Councilman Cannon,
Yes.
Councilman Hirsch,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montone,
Yes.
Councilman Swindell,
Yes.
Mayor Taglerini.
Yes, thank you very much. Councilman Cannon, little housekeeping.
Mayor and fellow councilors, I'd like to make a motion to table resolution 2020-120 for further review by the town.
Second.
Councilman Cannon,
Yes.
Councilman Hirsch,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montone,
Yes.
Councilman Swindell,
Yes.
Mayor Taglerini.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think Councilman Hirsch, did we give you E and F?
Excuse me?
Did we assign you for 8E and 8F?
No, but I'll be happy to do it.
Would you be so kind?
Yes, to our mayor and fellow council members, I'd like to make a motion to accept, to approve raffle number 1216 and raffle RA number 1217.
Second.
Councilman Cannon,
Yes.
Councilman Hirsch,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montone,
Yes.
Councilman Swindell,
Yes.
Mayor Taglerini.
Yes, thank you very much. And that brings us up to number 9, the hearing of the citizens, correspondence, petitions. We like to call it new business, whatever's on your mind. So by raising your hand or contacting our manager, please let us know if there's anything you'd like to talk about this evening or bring to our attention.
We have, go ahead, lower hand. Ms. Osborne, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for the fabulous job. Township is looking great. Streets are looking great. Just keep up the good work. I'm out here walking. That's why I have my video off.
That's good.
Hey, you guys know how I was 2 years ago. So
Yes,
God is great.
absolutely.
When I can get it. I get it. Yeah.
That's right. Very good. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah. I still walk in the neighborhood, so it looks great.
Thank you
very
much.
good.
Down the street is not. It's not bad. It's not loitering. So, people getting help.
And it's, Ms. Osborne, as soon as the state approves our plan and funding, we're going to have the rest of a county road done. So the front of your house won't have the potholes in front of it anymore. So we're still working on it.
All the spray paint that we see, the blue and for the water and gas and the new
Yep.
work that's going to be done. Yeah,
All the way to Clifford Avenue to finish it off.
great.
Took
Thank
a while,
you.
but it's getting done. Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Brian, do we see anybody else?
Give me 1 minute.
Sure.
No, it looks to be clear, Mayor.
Okay, well then, that will bring us up to getting ready for the executive session. And I'd like to call on our attorney to give us the executive session resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution authorizing the Township Council to enter into executive session. Whereas the Township Council are mindful of the right of the public to attend and witness meetings of governmental bodies at which public business is discussed and to be involved in all phases of governmental action. And whereas the Open Public Meetings Act nonetheless recognizes the authority of a public body to exclude the public from meetings in certain enumerated instances in which disclosure of matters discussed could endanger public safety, property, and other public interest or invade individual privacy. And whereas as authorized by the Open Public Meetings Act, be it resolved that the Township Council will meet in private session at 8:40 p.m. on October 15th, 2020 to discuss the following specific items: contractual shared service, litigation, ADP, and personnel. Be it resolved that matters so discussed will be disclosed to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Motion?
Second on that, please? Or take a motion on that?
Make motion.
Second.
Good. All right. Thank you. All in
Have a
favor?
great night.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for coming out. And a special thanks to Paul and the environmental group for bringing those guest speakers to us. A lot to be done, but I'm sure we'll work together and do the best we can to do the right thing for the watershed. So Paul, again, thank you so very, very much. And thank you for also sitting on planning board. Thank you to all the board members who are with us and volunteer. And if the attorneys are still on and if Anthony is still on, thank you all very, very much for joining us tonight. So we're gonna wish you a good evening, a safe Halloween, and please be safe. Please be extra special safe as we go around town again, as the numbers seem to be escalating, but we will get through this all together. So thank you, everybody, and good night, and we'll go into executive session.
Good night.
Night.